90 years ago, the Virginia Farm Bureau made our local farmers a promise to protect and preserve a way of life they worked so hard to establish. Today, our insurance agents work to protect all Virginians, not just farmers. We want to keep Virginia, Virginia. More information is at farmbureauadvantage.com.
The Remarkable Soybean. From its oil, we get products like ink, candles, and paint. From its meal, we get a high-protein fiber used in foods and animal feeds. Natural soy is replacing chemicals and products you use every day. You can learn more about soybeans at vasoybean.com.
Would you like to put your business in front of rural America and the ag community every week? We have sponsorship opportunities available that will do just that. Contact us to find out how you can milk it for all it's worth.
The livestock industry plays a vital role in Virginia's agricultural economy. This week we welcome Jason Carter with the Virginia Cattlemen's Association to discuss numerous issues facing cattlemen in our state. We'll also explore the new Veterinary Feed Directive to see just how it might impact all livestock producers. Plus, we'll explore the concept of military veterans becoming involved in Virginia agriculture. It's all straight ahead on this episode of Virginia Farming. I'm Jeff Ishii. We kick off the program this week with an in-depth look at a new regulation involving livestock producers here in Virginia and across the nation. It's called the Veterinary Feed Directive.
The Food and Drug Administration implemented a new regulation on January the 1st of this year. The new rule addresses the issue of antibiotics in livestock feed. Jason Carter is president of the Virginia Cattlemen's Association and gives us the basics of the new rule.
The Veterinary Feed Directive becomes effective January 1st, 2017. The primary change that most producers may see as a result of that is not being able to buy CTC and mineral or some feeds that they may have used to buy for control of pink eye. The Veterinary Feed Directive, the whole point behind it was to start limiting the use of antibiotics in animal feeds that were also important in human medicine. So it doesn't mean those are unattainable, but what it does mean is that certain off-label uses or certain uses of those antibiotics now need to be by prescription. So producers need to be aware of the drug changes that are affected, but also make sure they're talking to their veterinarians and have a good relationship.
Dr. Bruce Bowman is with the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services and offers more details.
Starting January 1, it is illegal for a producer to feed medicated feed without a veterinarian's oversight. Now, historically, we've been able to go into the feed store, ask for over-the-counter feeds that contain antibiotics, and that's going to go away. We've also been able to go in and ask for water-soluble antibiotics. That's going to change from over-the-counter to prescription use. Now, it's important to point out, Jeff, that we're not talking about the LA200s or the PenG injectable antibiotics. There's no change with that. There's no change with dewormers like ivermectin and its cousins and what have you. There's no change with coccidiostats that are added to water. What is changing is any antibiotic, not just cattle, any species that we're using medicated feed for is going to fall under the Veterinary Feed Directive.
Carter explains that the changes being made are mostly driven by public demand at the retail level.
Consumer pressure affects a lot of change in the livestock business now as it relates to production practices. I don't see this change making a difference in demand at the consumer level, but concerns over antibiotic use at the consumer level have changed policy in food, animal, and crop production across the board.
Bowman offers his ideas on what brought about these changes concerning medications in livestock feed, and it does include public demand.
It would be safe to say that that is one element. The consumers have put pressure on Congress and the FDA, but science, the global science community and our companies, our bigger companies, are also putting pressure on to consider the amount of antibiotics that are fed to livestock every year. As an example, last year alone, 32 million tons of tetracycline was fed to cattle to promote growth, to increase milk production, and that is no longer allowed under this FDA rule. We can still use those antibiotics, but only under a veterinarian's direction and only to prevent disease or to treat disease. What's really driving this, Jeff, is antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, and the resistance is being seen in the human population, in the animal population. We know that antibiotics can't be effective but for so long because the bacteria eventually develop a way around it. That's their nature. That's bacteria are good at that. And we need to preserve antibiotics for only those animals that might get sick or that are already ill. We use it for treatment and prevention, not to promote growth and so forth.
Bowman says the bottom line is that livestock producers need to be aware of these new regulations and make the necessary changes in their operations.
This is a key. It is a key element of the VFD, Jeff. A veterinarian and a producer must have a valid client-patient relationship. That's called a VCPR. And that relationship doesn't necessarily mean that the veterinarian will visit the farm to examine each animal or each group of animals that are being treated with a feed additive, but it means that there must be an understanding. There has to be a relationship between that veterinarian and that producer so that that veterinarian can justify filling an order to have that feed mixed at the mill.
Once again, the new Veterinary Feed Directive is now in effect, and all livestock producers should be aware of the details.
Farmers, of course, can get more information about these new regulations by contacting their local office of Virginia Cooperative Extension or by talking to their veterinarian. Well, it's been said that farmers and military veterans have a lot in common. They know the meaning of hard work, they're dedicated to their mission, and they're usually humble when it comes to being recognized for their work. So farmers and veterans seems like a match made in heaven.
The Farmer Veteran Coalition is considering establishing a chapter in Virginia. Officials with the nonprofit organization say they believe that military veterans make ideal candidates to be involved in agriculture. Soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines have a lot to offer because of their training, their physical abilities, and their commitment to getting the job done. John Fant is a Virginia farmer and a retired colonel, having spent nearly 3 decades serving in the U.S. Army. He now operates a cattle operation in southwest Virginia and has this to say about the Farmer Veteran Coalition and why it's looking to start a new chapter in Virginia.
Farmer Veteran Coalition's purpose in life is to mobilize veterans to help feed America. Most folks are aware that their food comes from some farmer from somewhere, but veterans specifically have a skill set that can be used to help address the big issue, which is aging farmers. So what we hope to achieve is veterans that are here in Virginia use the resources that the national level has to mobilize them, to energize them, to incentivize them to continue in agriculture so we can continue to feed the folks of our nation.
Fant says military veterans could play a pivotal role in providing food, fiber, and fuel for our nation.
If only 1% of the nation defends the nation, we also have only 1% of the nation that's feeding the nation. So we want veterans to join the other 1%. So we address this issue of food for the future.
Jason Fiscalo is a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps and is now an attorney, serving as general counsel for the Farmer Veteran Coalition. He says a lot of resources are available online 24/7.
If you wanted additional information about what we do, you can go to www.farmvetco.org. You can click around a little bit and see who supports us in our mission. If you're a military veteran, you can click around the site and get access to all sorts of educational resources, financial resources. I would urge anyone who sees this to become a member, whether you're a military member or not.
The Virginia chapter of the Farmer Veteran Coalition hopes to be up and running sometime in 2017. The initial effort will be spearheaded by a working group which hopes to eventually establish a chapter here in the Old Dominion.
Military veterans or others who are interested in joining the effort can get more information online at farmvetco.org. Well, Jason Carter is president of the Virginia Cattlemen's Association. He'll join us in just a few moments during Ag Insights. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jeff Ishii. This is Virginia Farming. This week, we're out at the Rockingham County Fairgrounds near Harrisonburg, Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley. And my special guest is Jason Carter with the Virginia Cattlemen's Association. Jason, real pleasure to have you back on the program.
Well,
thank you for
Jeff.
coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate being a guest.
For our viewers who are not familiar with the Virginia cattle industry, boy, we've got a lot to talk about this week with the cattle industry. America's cattle industry kind of started in Virginia.
Absolutely. Virginia has had cattle on its soil for almost 400 years, maybe longer. The little history is fuzzy maybe a little back then, but we know that they've been here for 4 centuries. And cattle came here from Europe. They weren't indigenous to the United States, and they've stayed here first as dual-purpose animals and then more specialized as beef and dairy producers. And in fact, one of the oldest cattle operations in the United States and the oldest east of the Mississippi is in Russell County, Virginia. Stewart Land and Cattle Company. Linda Stewart manages that farm now, and it was a land grant from the King of England. And we're pleased next year on July 7th, 2017, we're having our Virginia Cattlemen's Field Day there.
That's going to be a great event. And we are so blessed here in the Commonwealth of Virginia to have that diversity of agriculture. Of course, the cattle industry, but also poultry and dairy and row crops and forages and wine grapes and aquaculture. There's so many different things, but probably one with one of the longest histories in Virginia is the cattle industry. How has the cattle industry changed in your lifetime, Jason?
In my lifetime, I think it's easy to focus on genetics. The efficiency of cattle has improved dramatically in the 40 plus years that I've been around. Cattle have gotten bigger. We produce more meat per animal than we ever have, with less animals than we've ever had. Genetically, cattle are more efficient than they've ever been. We convert feed and water to beef, and that saves resources. From an environmental point of view, which a lot of people focus on nowadays, and rightfully so, as our population gets bigger, we need to be concerned with our natural resources. And agriculture has, in general, progressed more rapidly probably than any enterprise that mankind participates in. So we produce food, and in the beef industry, we certainly produce more pounds of beef more efficiently in the last 30 years than we did in the 100 years before that.
What about from the consumer perspective? A lot of our viewers at home, they've seen changes in the grocery store display cases. There's a lot more cuts available now.
Yes, it is, and we can thank producers for that. Producers pay into the beef checkoff $1 per head on every animal they sell every year, and that money is invested primarily in research, not only to help the cattle industry understand better how to develop a quality product, but also to help the consumer understand better what the quality behind our product is. And those new cuts are born out of convenience. Consumers want to spend less time cooking and more time enjoying all the other things they can be doing, but have a quality eating experience. So those label changes that have resulted in new cuts, new cookery methods, and better nutritional guidelines are a result of beef producers investing in that.
Jason, one question I know that our consumers would have of you or any Virginia cattleman is the prices in the markets. Starting at the beginning of this decade, the consumer saw a trend steadily upward in beef prices, and that peaked sometime about 2, maybe 3 years ago. And beef prices almost became unaffordable for a lot of folks, and people were turning to lesser priced cuts of meat. What caused that, and where are we now in the cattle market and retail prices?
From a retail perspective, you're right. About 5 or 6 years ago, we did see a dramatic run-up in the price of retail beef, and that was a function primarily of supply. Several years ago, this country went through a dramatic drought in the Midwest, and about 40% of all the cows in this country are in the southeastern United States, but the feeding industry and a lot of cows are in the Midwest. And when they lost their grass, they started selling cows off, We had a terrific export business. We had a relatively low dollar value. So we sent a lot of beef overseas despite how much we consumed here, and it became a supply issue when people were looking ahead. So retailers and wholesalers started buying beef, anticipating there to be a shortage. It helped run the price of beef up. And so the price of beef on the retail level really went up faster than on the live side. And it has remained somewhat high compared to where it was 10 years ago, but the willingness of consumers to buy it still is very high as well. We haven't seen a decrease in per capita consumption of beef for several years.
Let me ask you, from the producer's perspective, the dairy industry has a history of being a very cyclical market. We see these wild swings in prices with fluid milk and cheese and throughout the dairy industry. Is there a point in time when the beef cattle industry could resemble the dairy industry when it comes to the volatility of the market?
I think it's very easy to make the argument now that we're in a volatile situation in the beef industry from a price perspective that the dairy folks have seen for many years. The beef industry is very similar to a lot of other agricultural commodities. There were fairly reliable 8 to 12 year cycles in prices where we would see a steady maintenance of price, maybe a little decline and then a step upward, and then a long, slow, steady holding that line until another step. And that lasted about sometimes shorter than a generation. Well, about 5 years ago, when we saw the retail price of beef go up rapidly and we saw a contraction of the beef herd happen very rapidly at the same time, we saw volatility come to the beef business like we'd never seen before on the live side.
I know at one point, Jason, the U.S. Department of Agriculture reported that our national beef cattle herd was the smallest it had been in a long, long time.
Yep.
What was the response from the cattle industry? Did they retain more of the calves, or what happened?
Well, it wasn't the cattle inventory that caused producers to retain females. It was prices we saw in 2014. That perfect storm of limited supply, tremendous export demand for our product, and increasing value on live cattle caused producers to retain females. And so in 2016 and in 2017 and even 2018, what we're going to see is the consequences of a slightly expanded beef herd because of decisions made in 2014. It's funny, it's easy to joke about in some respects. Agriculture is the only industry in the United States that most people buy into when prices are high.
I've heard that many a time.
And, you know, and I don't mean that in a joking manner, but relatively it's true.
It is
People
true.
tend to expand in agriculture when times are really good. And as a consequence of that, because there's so many factors that affect the cattle market, increased supply and the anticipation of more beef is actually pushing cattle prices down somewhat now. So we're going to work through that. The herd expansion that we maybe thought we were going to go through this year in 2016 may not be as dramatic as we once thought it was going to be, but there are certainly more cattle here now than there were even 2 years ago.
Jason, as you know, and as most of our viewers at home know, Governor Terry McAuliffe has stated as one of his goals is to make Virginia the agricultural export capital of the East Coast.
Yep.
What do we have to do that?
Well, we need to support our infrastructure, number one. Most of the cattle in Virginia, are in the western side of the state. We export most of our cattle on trucks, to be quite honest.
Where?
To the eastern Corn Belt.
Okay.
Eastern Nebraska, Iowa, southern Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin. Those are really the primary destinations of Virginia feeder cattle. We still send cattle to southeastern Pennsylvania and Ohio as well, to our traditional markets of decades past, but cattle from Virginia are still typically flowing west to farmer feeders, and then they eventually make it back east to consumers.
Okay. Now, what about foreign exports? Where do we stand in that regard? Is that trending upward or remaining level?
It's trending upward. Our business is very dependent on exports to help support demand and upward price mobility in the cattle market. But our exports in 2016 overall from the United States of beef, particularly to the Pacific Rim countries, is up over 2015. We make the best beef in the world. We have a high value product. We have a lot of variety. And even though we consume more than 80% of the beef that we produce here in the United States domestically, it's the things that we won't eat in the United States. I guarantee that most of your audience probably doesn't eat beef liver once a week, but there are parts of the world.
I would, but my wife won't cook it.
That's exactly right. We were raised on it, but this generation isn't, and they won't buy it. But particularly in the Middle East, they pay for beef liver like we're used to paying for sirloin here.
Wow.
It's a staple, and it's the added value from things like that that really underpin the beef business as well and give us tremendous opportunity for exports.
Let me ask you about one of the more controversial issues we've seen in the cattle industry in recent years. At least what I've heard from cattlemen is a bit of controversy, and that's the Veterinary Feed Directive.
Sure.
First of all, how did this initiative get started? And explain to our viewers at home, what is the Veterinary Feed Directive?
Well, the Veterinary Feed Directive is a product of the Food and Drug Administration's efforts to respond to consumer concerns over antibiotic resistance. And it's an examination of how relative antibiotics in the human and the food animal side are being used, particularly in the subtherapeutic level. So the Veterinary Feed Directive, which goes into effect January 1st, 2017, is going to change a little bit how some antibiotics that are applicable to humans and animals are used. It will require prescriptions written by veterinarians to producers to acquire some of these drugs that they may have gotten over the counter before, and it will limit particularly some of the uses that cattlemen may have used CTC, for example, in the past for control of something like pink eye, which is certainly an issue here in Virginia, but not an on-label issue as a treatment. It's a preventative. So culturally in the beef business, what we're probably going to see as a result of the VFD is two things: a positive relationship increase with veterinarians and producers, and also a change in management where some of the subtherapeutic uses of antibiotics may diminish.
Bottom line, is this going to lead to increased cost to the farmer, to the producer?
That remains to be seen. I think there may be some cost-saving opportunity in feed and mineral with one ingredient not there anymore that may have been in the past. If there are health issues that are resulting from not doing that any longer, then working with a veterinarian will help find solutions to minimize that cost impact.
Only about a minute or so left, and we're talking with Jason Carter with the Virginia Cattlemen's Association here at the Rockingham County Fairgrounds in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. So much to learn about the beef industry. Let me ask you about a couple of resources that are available to both consumers and to producers' websites. For the consumer, what would you recommend?
Absolutely, beefitswhatsfordinner.com.
Oh,
Beef is What's for Dinner became one of the most recognizable slogans in the history of marketing in the United States. It's still with us. Beefitswhatsfordinner.com can answer thousands of questions on everything from recipe ideas that take less than 20 minutes to dinners that you might be preparing months ahead of time for, nutrition information, how to source beef. VAbeef.org, we have a local beef directory of Virginia-produced beef on the farm and the retail level for people that are interested in buying local. So those are two websites and resources that I highly recommend.
You bring up one final question I've got to ask. Are you seeing any trends with direct marketing, people going to the producer? Like when I was growing up, you bought a quarter of a beef and you put it in the freezer, maybe a half of a beef for a couple of families. Are we seeing that?
There's interest in it. It's a niche market that continues to exist, and it suits some producers and some consumers. And so if it means selling beef and it means selling good quality beef, then we're all for that.
All right. Thank you so much for being our guest on Virginia Farming. We appreciate it. Our pearl of wisdom this week comes from an anonymous viewer who says, "I want my kids to grow up and have all the things I couldn't afford, and then I want to move in with them." That is so true. Submit your own pearl of wisdom by visiting our website at virginiafarming.com. That does it for our show this week. Have a great week, everyone. I'm Jeff Ishii for Virginia Farming.
90 years ago, the Virginia Farm Bureau made our local farmers a promise to protect and preserve a way of life they work so hard to establish. We want to keep Virginia, Virginia. Anyone can be a Farm Bureau member, and there's a local Farm Bureau in every county. More information is at vafarmbureau.org.
Virginia soybean farmers are hard at work growing soybeans to produce products you use every day. Candles, soaps, even crayons can be made from soybeans. Remember, when you buy soy, you're helping to support American jobs, the economy, and our nation's energy security.
Would you like to put your business in front of rural America and the ag community every week? We have sponsorship opportunities available that will do just that. Get in touch with us to hatch a new plan.